Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Breaking the Dark by Lisa Jewell. This is a Jessica Jones Marvel crime novel from Hyperion Avenue, is what it says right there. So it is what it says on the tin, a Jessica Jones Marvel crime novel. So, for those of you who don't know, Jessica Jones is a former superhero who's now a private detective. And in this book, a rather wealthy woman comes to Jessica Jones and says that, hey, my twin children, my daughter and my son, went to England for 4 weeks to spend time with their father. When they came back, they are not the same. I think something's wrong with them. Can you find out what the hell happened? And she convinces Jessica Jones to take the case, and that's the nutshell. That's what we're starting out with. So, first of all, for the too long didn't watch crowd, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Um, so there's that. Before I get into the book itself, a little Jessica Jones history. For those who don't know, Jessica Jones was created by Brian Michael Bendis and I feel terrible that I do not remember the artist's name. Michael Gaydos. I knew it was Gaydos. I couldn't remember his first name. Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos created Jessica Jones. Her comic was called Alias, and it was the flagship title of Marvel's Max adult line. The first word on the first page of the first issue was fuck. So we knew what we were getting into, and we're introduced to this character again, Jessica Jones. She's a private detective. She drinks too much. She sleeps around. This is how she describes herself, and I think, by the second or third page, we see that she's has a friends with benefits, maybe not even friends, but there's definitely benefits with Luke Cage, and she has superpowers. She tried to be a costumed hero, and then something incredibly horrible happened to her. She gave up the costume hero life and became this sort of drunken private investigator. But she's got super strength. She has flight. Technically, she has flight, but she hasn't used it. She uses it so rarely now that it's more of graceful jumping. Um, and I believe she's got durability, those sorts of things. Not a high level superhero, but nothing to sneeze at. And her comics were very gritty and these very sort of noir stories in a superhero world. So the book takes place in, essentially, from what I can tell, it's 2004. 2000 or not 2004, excuse me, 2024 is what I meant to say. It's 2023, 2024, but it's not set in the current comic book continuity. So if there's any like hardcore Jessica Jones fans out there, just be aware of that because it is still in the comics. Spoilers for anyone who's going to start reading the comics. She and Luke Cage have gotten married and had a child. In here, they're still in their friends with benefits relationship. Um, so now, Lisa Jewell is a New York Times best-selling author. She has books such as The Family Upstairs, Then She Was Gone. At the time of this, it says her latest novel, None of This Is True. So I think she's a writer of thrillers along the lines of Gone Girl. You know, is it Gillian or Gillian Flynn? Sarah Pinborough's recent stuff. By recent, I mean, I don't know, the past 10 years or so. Whenever Behind Her Eyes came out, or The Lady on the Train, that sort of thing. And that's the feel that this book had for me. It felt like that type of story, but set in a superhero world. And the superhero world part of it isn't overwhelming at all. And there are lots of, well, I shouldn't say lots. There are quite a few references to things that you're either going to get or you're not. There's a lot, again, quite a few things. I keep wanting to say a lot, obviously. Um, Quite a few things that are just sort of thrown out there with no explanation. It's a long time. We keep hearing about this trauma that Jessica Jones has had, and it's quite a while before we get any sort of explanation for what it is, and even that is relatively vague. There are some other comic book character cameos. Luke Cage is in this, and so he's a secondary character, I suppose. But then there are a couple of other comic book character cameos that are just cameos. Um, but so what we have is Jessica Jones taking this case, um, and she's investigating. She's looking into things in New York, and then we get to a whole sort of fish out of water part where she goes to England to try to figure out what went on when these twins were in England. And she's trying to piece things together. She's questioning people. Very much, a detective story, but with some weird elements. And mixed in with this, not every chapter, but I'd say the majority of the chapters, there's a break, and then we have these time jumps where we're focused on other characters. And for the longest time, we don't know how it's going to tie in with our main story. And there's one very jarring element. The book is all in third person, except for one of these time jump sections that's 3 or 4 pages long, where, and this is the only time it happens, it's first person from one of these characters 12 years ago. It's very weird. I don't know why it was done that way. If all of the 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 6 years ago, these parts are slowly catching up to the present. If all of them had been first person, even if it had been first person, different characters' perspectives, it wouldn't have been quite so jarring that out of all of this, there's just 4 or 5 pages that are first person from a minor character. It's really, really weird. Be interested to know why the author did it that way. But that's not a big thing. But we do have, so we're following Jessica Jones as she's investigating the case, and then every other chapter or so, I didn't count. There's a chapter, there's a break, and then it'll say 12 years ago, this location, and we have something going on, and then so we'll read more about Jessica Jones in the next chapter, and then the next chapter might have that break, and then 12 years ago in this place, or it might be 2 chapters later, 12 years ago in this place, then, as I said, 10 years ago, etc., till it catches up. And I'm not going to tell you anything about what's going on there, because that could give things away. This is a very modern story, and I would compare it to a very terrible comic book movie, not in the terribleness of it, just certain plot points of it reminded me of a very terrible comic book movie that I don't want to mention because I don't want to give anything away. But I don't think that the element that reminded me of that terrible movie, I don't think those elements in the book are terrible the way they are in the movie because of more that's going on. I'm so vague here. Um, but it's has to do with essentially modern society. And I guess I can leave it at that. I don't know. It's a very interesting book. I'm a huge fan of Jessica Jones. It took me a little while to get into Lisa Jewell's style, but not a long time. And once I was in, I was in. Um, I loved the relationship, the way she portrays the relationship between Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. And she writes interesting characters. I enjoyed the parts where Jessica Jones is in England, again, giving us sort of that fish out of water. She's a New Yorker through and through, and now she's in a little tiny village in England, and dealing with culture shock essentially. And it's all going to build. She's going to figure things out. She's going to try to save the day. And there is a character that's introduced that almost, well, it feels like they were introduced simply to fulfill a role that needed to be filled in the story. But I liked that character so much that I don't mind that feeling. Um, so that's probably, the strength of Lisa Jewell's writing. I haven't read a lot of these thriller type novels. I've read Sarah Pinborough. I haven't read Gone Girl or any Gillian or Gillian Flynn, whichever it is. I know they're very popular, and but I have so much to read, and I can't read everything. But if I were going to try some, maybe I'd try some Lisa Jewell because I enjoyed Breaking the Dark by Lisa Jewell. 4 out of 5. A Jessica Jones Marvel crime novel. In the back, it does tease some other stuff that I have heard about. But I can't find these on anywhere. So I don't know if it's a case of this didn't sell as much as they thought, so maybe these other books aren't going to come out. But very excited, hoping to see a Luke Cage Marvel crime novel written by S.A. Cosby. Holy shit, how great would that be? S.A. Cosby's amazing. And then there's supposed to be a Daredevil one written by Alex Segura, who's written novels and comic books and stuff. But man, an S.A. Cosby Luke Cage book would be fantastic. But this is a Jessica Jones Marvel crime novel, and it's really good. I'm not sure what else to say about it. It's got an interesting mystery. It's well written. It's great character and some interesting new characters. I recommend it for fans of thrillers. And if you read this, and if you're that type of thriller fan and you read this, please let me know if I'm on point when I compare it to these other types of stories. Excuse me. My question for this video: are you familiar with Jessica Jones? Are you a fan? I would say any non-comic book readers might know her best from the Netflix show. And I only watched the first season. I really enjoyed it. Kristen Ritter playing Jessica Jones, Mike Coulter, I believe his name is, as Luke Cage, David Tennant as the Purple Man. Well, Kilgrave, I think his name is. But he's the Purple Man. I thought it was a fantastic show, and but I read Alias as it came out. I was picking up the issues brand new as they came out, reading it. I'm generally a fan of Michael Brian Bendis's Marvel writing. I don't know what happened when he moved to DC. I didn't enjoy pretty much anything he was doing over there. Didn't hate it, but didn't grab me the way his Marvel stuff did. But anyway, so yeah, loved the comic Alias, and Jessica Jones moved on. She was in a comic called The Pulse, which was a newspaper or magazine, and even that's gets referenced in here. And she's been in all sorts of different books. She's had her own. She's had a bunch of mini series. I actually have one that I haven't read yet. Uh, and as I said, she's married Luke Cage. They've had a child. Just a great character. But let me know if you're familiar with her at all. Have you read any of the comics or read her character in any other comics that she might have appeared in? Did you watch the show on Netflix? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And on Blue Sky, where I do not post much at all, I am at EL Smith. That's all I've got for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show, and I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.